So the muscadine grapes, they typically like to grow in little clumps on top of bushes, trees, whatever. You'll find them all over on the south and east coast of America. There's also different varieties and different types of muscadine grapes that you can get. So, you know, even if you try to make one wine from one type of grapes versus another one, you're going to get a completely different wine. You know, even from one batch to another or one season to another, you're going to get a completely different wine. So it's really interesting, you know, to have that variety and flavor and just a distinct flavor that it has from each season. Most importantly, the work that you put in. And that's the number one thing you'll notice is the hardest part about all this whole entire process is going to be picking them. The muscadine grapes, they like to grow in individual clusters or clumps. So a typical grape, you can just cut the stem and you'll have a huge bunch of grapes, right? That'll weigh like a pound or two. But with muscadine grapes, that you have to pick each and every single one. It's a lot longer process. In order to pick up all these grapes that I did last year, it took me, I think, around 2 to 3 days with the help of my dad. So it is a very long process, but again, it's worth it. You know, a weekend of work to do this all, you know, and you get yourself the best wine you'll ever taste. A ladder also helps a lot with getting on top and getting the ones all the way up top. As you see, works pretty good in the muscadine vines. It forms like a mesh through the tree branches, so you're just able to put it on top and it stays pretty sturdy. Here's a perfect example of a different variety. As you see, these are way smaller. They're so cute also, but you know, they taste kind of similar, but a lot, let's say, sweeter or sour, you know, than the other one, than the big one. So, you know, different grapes are going to give you different flavors. So, you know, definitely try to experiment, try to see which ones, you know, you got and which ones you'll get out of them. So I got 3 buckets of grapes, as you see. Next, I'm gonna mash it up. So you can use just a regular old, you know, one of these things and just boop, 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 mash it up as much as possible. But I got this fancy thing. I paid $100 for it on Amazon. They're, you know, just a fruit press. You could look it up on Amazon again. And I'm gonna see how well this works out. Because it's a bit of work doing it, you know, by hand, and also apparently this is supposed to get a lot better, you know, concentration. After picking, I had these berries sit in this bucket for a couple days. As you see, they're getting very soft, and the reason why is because, well, 2 reasons. Firstly, we need to separate, obviously, all the leaves, all the, you know, branches, all this stuff, and most importantly, all these, you know, unripe berries. We also, you know, having it sit in the bucket a couple days, it helps ripen up the little red ones, you know, like these, for example, because these, what I suggest doing is just tasting them. You know, eat the slightly unripe ones and the fully ripe ones, and see the difference. And you'll see that the fully ripe ones, they have a much more distinct flavor versus the unripe ones, where they kind of taste very sour and sometimes even very bitter. So it's very important to separate those, you know, because you want to get your wine as delicious as possible. If you have a bunch of those, they'll give it an off taste. So yeah, gotta separate and filter through all 3 of these now. So I'm gonna now start squeezing. So again, you can do this by hand, but so instead of using, you know, this fancy machine, you would simply use a cheesecloth of some sort. But yeah, this machine automatically squeezes and filters and pulps and everything for me. So I'm gonna do that. I already got all the buckets cleaned up of all the red pieces and all the small white pieces and all the stems and leaves. So now I'm gonna start squeezing. After sorting the grapes, we need to crush it. I bought this squeeze thing and tried it, but as you see, it doesn't really crush most of the grapes. So you can see there's a whole bunch of whole grapes. It kind of did decently in squeezing it, but what I'm gonna do, and what you should do, is use this thing. So this pretty much, you just mush up the grapes. Try to have each and every single one broken. You know, so like try to have it like split apart and squeezed and, you know, crushed and everything. And then afterwards, you can just use a regular old cheesecloth or some sort of, you know, net sieve, whatever, and pretty much then squeeze out the juices from the grapes itself. In my case, I'll be using this thing since I bought it, and it's really frustrating to buy something and not be able to use it. So that's what I'm gonna do. But yeah, so pretty much crush all the grapes first, and then I will go into the next process. So here it is. I've had it sit here for a couple days. As you notice, all this pulp stuff has gone to the top. I see all of that pretty much here below is pretty much solid liquid. So I'm gonna press all this pulp stuff out, try to drain as much, and get the liquid in there. Again, you can use a cheesecloth. I'm gonna use this fancy machine. But yeah, point is you want to squeeze all this and filter it out. Next, we're going to add sugar to some water. Pretty much we're going to have half wine and half water. With the water, we're going to add about 8 cups of sugar to a gallon of water. So here I have about 2.5 gallons. So I'm going to add about 16, 18 cups. And then we're going to add this to this and mix it up. I'm also going to add the yeast packet to the sugar water. Make sure I mix it up really well, rehydrate it, and add it all to the yeast. So I'm going to do that. I already added the sugar. And all this extra pulp, we're actually going to keep it, and we're going to fill it up with water and try to make more wine out of this, a second batch. So I'm going to fill it up probably something like halfway, just like how much juice we got out of this one, and try to get a little bit more out. And you don't need to buy the yeast packets. You can use the natural yeast that's on the grapes. I just know I've tried doing it both. One that's natural and one that's with the bought purchased commercial yeast, and the commercial yeast just tastes better. I just like it personally. So it's all to your preferences, and they have different types of yeast, different types of varieties that give different textures and flavors. So definitely experiment and try. See what you like and prefer. So I've had this wine sitting in this bucket for a few months now. What you got to do is add in the airlock. You can buy this on Amazon. They're like a couple bucks each, and you just fill it up with water, and pretty much air can go out, well, air can't go back in. You want to make sure this is in a cool place with no sunlight. Even though it's in this white plastic bucket, I still covered it with a piece of cloth. Just to make sure that no sunlight gets in. And during the process, there's 2 things you want to do. Is occasionally filter it. Pretty much what will happen is things will settle in your tank, and you'll notice, especially if you are using a clear bottle or whatever, let's say, you'll notice a sediment layer on the bottom. So you want to carefully pour off the top layer again through a cheesecloth in order to get clear wine. So you're gonna have to do that a couple times, maybe once every 2 weeks or every week, preferably. The second thing you want to do is check the that this airlock is bubbling. So what you'll notice is actual air bubbles bubbling through. Boop, boop, boop. That's the yeast inside here creating the CO2. What's important is once this stops, that means there's no more sugar left in your actual wine. So what you do then is we'll do a taste test. So you check the wine, taste it, and see if it's alcoholic enough. If you want to go higher, if you want a higher alcoholic percentage, you add more sugar. If you don't, then you don't. Or if you want it sweeter, so on and so forth, right? It just varies on what you want. You can't just go, a alcoholic percentage to infinity, because yeast will die around 50% alcohol percentage. There's different yeast brands and types, so check your yeast that you're using. But natural yeast will be even less. It'll be like less than 10%. So yeah, it's that simple. I'm gonna open this up now and show you what I got. So we open this up, and that is some yummy yeast. Let me pour some out and taste it. So I just poured a little in this cup, and let's have a taste. This is the best. I'm telling you, this is the best wine I have ever had. And I've had so many neighbors, so many people come and try it, and it's just wow. And you drink this stuff, and it will get you drunk really quickly, because I like my stuff, that's the point of drinking. But yeah, I'm telling you, please try it. You know, if you even you can do this with store grapes or store fruit. You know, anything really. It's just you know fruit and fermenting yeast, as you see. You know, it turns the sugar into alcohol, and also some sugars naturally in the fruits, and the fruits also give it flavor. You know, so very simple. Highly suggest trying it out. And I'm gonna have more of this. Gonna fill up this cup. God, that is good.